Found on the shores of Lake Michigan, overlooking the Little Traverse Bay, is Petoskey Plastics, a small plastics company that began in 1969 with one machine and 5 associates, run by a father and son team, has now grown into a leading plastics manufacturer in North America, employing and supporting over 450 families. A far cry from that of the early days, when the small team of 5 discussed its dream for the future. Our story begins when Paul Keysweater's father, Duke, decided to move the family back to Petoskey.
He would rather be in the manufacturing business again, which was very unusual for this neck of the woods, this area in northern Michigan. And so he contacted me, and I wanted to move back, but I didn't want to move back and rely on a small geographic area for my livelihood. I'd rather go out into the Midwest, the globe, to make my living. We opened the first plant probably a mile south of the Big Boy. And then we put, I think, $400 or $500 down on the bag machine.
The only thing we really made at that time was retail trash bags, either bulk packed in boxes, or we did, the bags were folded up and put into like plastic sleeves. There were a lot of 14, 15-hour days, a lot of tears, a lot of, I can't do it all. And you came in, you didn't know if you were going to make the coffee, you didn't know if you were going to run errands, you didn't know if you were going to get lunches, make the lunch, order resin, you name it, we did it.
And over time, like 3 or 4 years, pretty soon the company was upside down. It was bankrupt. Theoretically, we just couldn't make a living the way it was set up. The show would be over when the sheriff locked the door. And I just said, listen, when he does, it's over. If he doesn't show up, we just needed time, in my mind. I had confidence that we could survive, but it's just, how are we gonna do it?
Nevertheless, Paul persevered and sought out a loan from the Small Business Administration to invest in new equipment and operations costs. But just like the banks, the government would not grant a loan to a company with negative net worth.
So I had to contact all of my suppliers. I told them I would pay them 50 cents on the dollar, and then I would give them a note with interest after I paid the government back. So the government considered that to be equity, so they gave me the loan. In the meantime, my dad said, I'll take the building, you can have the bankrupt company. So we shook hands, and I got the bankrupt company and he got the building. When we had this money in good position with our suppliers, the first oil shortage hit. I was able to broker resin. I sold the government a huge amount of bags and made an enormous commission off of it. At that point, it was over $300,000, and that was in the 70s. That was more than our total volume. Armed with that money, we really got some adhesion. I bought some extrusion equipment, and I invested it back in the company.
In 1975, Petoskey Plastics was able to buy their first extruder, now allowing them to manufacture their own polyethylene sheeting and tubing. After growing out of the current 6,000 square foot space, a new plant was opened on US 31, where operations still take place today. 1978 saw the first venture into recycling plastics in collaboration with Michigan company Dow Chemical.
Dow Chemical, with all their Ziploc bags, I found out that they were burying all that plastic. And they were burying it because they tried to sell it to the recyclers, but the recyclers were selling it to brokers who were repackaging it and sending it out into the marketplace. Well, I went to them and after a period of a year or so, convinced them that we would buy that from them and grind it up and turn it into trash bags, which we did in Petoskey, Michigan, up the road. So knowing that we could actually be cost effective using recycled materials if we could get the right supply, I put a major focus on that.
The 1980s were times of great growth, but certainly not without setbacks. A major winter storm washed out the only rail siding into Petoskey, which provided all the resin supply to the plant. Petoskey Plastics had no choice but to purchase a tanker truck to transfer resin from the southeast side of town. Also around this time, a high-ranking sales associate took the company's confidential marketing plan to start his own company, which included new equipment and product plans. Despite the setbacks, Petoskey Plastics pushed forward with a focus on innovating new products.
We were trying to get into automotive. They had an issue. They couldn't keep a piece of plastic on a seat cover during the assembly process. High density was just coming into the marketplace, and it's those little slippery little bags. So we would take that material and extrude it on one layer, and we would take sticky material and extrude it on the other. As a matter of fact, when I got that material, I went back to Ford, got a hold of the engineer and said, "Watch this." And I laid the plastic on the seat. I opened both doors. I ran at the car and dove into the front seat and slid all the way across the seat and fell out on the other side on the floor. And the seat cover stayed right on. So he just loved it. And that was the start. That was the first, what would you call it, presentation of slip and grip. That's what we call it, because it was slippery and it gripped. And that got us a contract with Ford. And that's where it started.
In 1986, Petoskey Plastics received a patent of slip and grip seat covers. A 2-ply extrusion line was added to increase production capacity to 3 million pounds a year, and by 1989, Petoskey Plastics was manufacturing seat covers for Ford.
Because of our location, Michigan, Detroit, automotive was the growth. I think if you look at where they focused prior to me, the OEMs were a big part of the business. Slip and grip was a big patent springboard that the company built its reputation on. And then you take it from the automotive seat cover, you expand it into the automotive aftermarket, and eventually we go into the paint, body, and equipment. So it's always been a big part of the company's focus and strategy.
While automotive was certainly the catalyst of growth in the 80s, the 90s would see a shift in focus to recycling and sustainability. In 1991, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources was looking for ways to reduce the amount of plastic going into landfills. Using Paul's research and technology he found from an Italian company a few years before, Petoskey Plastics sought out a $1 million grant from the state of Michigan to support this initiative.
At the time, we recycled just plant scrap. We recycled stuff from Dow also. We had 2 weeks to put together this grant application. We got it done, and even then we didn't know if we'd get it. There was a lot of scuttle that we applied for it, and some of the other bag manufacturers, we were going to have a significant advantage over them if we got this money. So they were sending somebody into the government to kind of intercept it and try to kibosh it.
And I remember he came into Sue and I one day and said, "I need the two of you to get on a plane in about 2 hours and go to Lansing and get that document signed, because I just have a feeling that if we don't get that grant signed, that it's not going to happen."
We got in the building, they signed the document. I had it in my briefcase. I'm walking down the hall and I see the senator walking literally past, and I just had the document signed. Back home we went, and it went through.
And we actually ended up with $1 million grant to buy all this equipment. Off we went, washing plastic.
Over the course of 2 years, Petoskey Plastics worked on retooling and refining the equipment to successfully clean, dry, and grind plastics into pellets, giving plastic film a second life and keeping it out of the waste stream. Slowly, this recycled content was integrated into product offerings, starting with canned sacks for bottle deposit bags, then a 3-layer slip and grip seat cover containing 25% recycled content. Petoskey Plastics helped pioneer plastic film recycling by becoming one of the first North American companies to successfully recycle low-density post-consumer plastics and use them in new products.
Recycling is really, beyond core competency. It's an obligation that we have to do, producer responsibility. We're trying to find products that can use recycled content. It is a raw material source. It's something that people can get behind and can understand. and feel good about manufacturing plastic products with recycled content. And that it's a great niche for us. I mean, we've been recycling since 1978. We're continuing to do so, and we think we're one of the leaders in the post-consumer arena.
Bay Harbors came into town. This was 20-some years ago. If you could hold a hammer, they'd hire you. So I basically thought about how we can educate our guys, and I knew that I'd have to pay them more, but in the meantime, I wanted them to have some skin in the game. So we created this blown film technician training at the college. In a minute, they graduated after they got an immediate, I think, $4 an hour raise. But I wanted to get them educated as best they could to feel good about themselves and to understand more about the industry. And they would be better forever. And these guys were really thrilled.
The investment into talent and the workforce springboarded the expansion of Petoskey Plastics into new, centralized locations to service the Midwest and East Coast with faster ship times and lower freight costs. In 1999, a bankrupt packaging plant in Morristown, Tennessee was acquired to expand operations. A second recycling line was added in Petoskey in 2001, and a new headquarters opened in downtown Petoskey in 2007. All seemed well with Petoskey Plastics looking to open a new recycling facility in Hartford City, Indiana. But 2008 would see the world slow to a crawl with the economy in near collapse.
I was scared to death. I was really I felt bad for the people that worked here. It was terrible. It looked like that was the end of the business. We were doing a lot of business in China. I said, we need the people. We need to repatriate that business. We went out and spent millions of dollars on new equipment, high-speed production equipment, so we wouldn't have to bring bags in from China, and we started building here.
The whole world had an issue that year, which turned out to be one of our best years. The tough times brought the team together, and people stuck together, and everybody dug their heels in, and we came out the other side stronger, better, more informed.
In an effort to grow in construction and home improvement markets, Petoskey Plastics took advantage of an ailing competitor, purchasing their equipment and moving it to Hartford City. The first recycling line launched there in 2010. 5 blown film extrusion lines were added in 2013, and a second recycling line was added in 2018. Today's operations span over 3 manufacturing locations in Petoskey, Michigan, Morristown, Tennessee, and Hartford City, Indiana. A sales office is located in Birmingham, Michigan, and the headquarters in downtown Petoskey. Today, Petoskey Plastics continues to be a leading manufacturer of plastic film, bags, and resin, but more importantly, continues to pioneer sustainability, chasing the perfect pellet. In 2018, $15 million was spent on capital expansion projects. The Morristown, Tennessee location will be expanded with an additional 32,000 square feet of building space, with plans to add manufacturing equipment over the next 5 years, projected to total just under $25 million, and the addition of 71 new jobs.
Our mission statement is to earn the appreciation and respect of our customers, associates, and communities, and I think that says a lot. The culture has been something that Paul holds near and dear to his heart. Our culture is kind of what makes us truly a fantastic company.
Petoskey Plastics is made up of 450 associates, each playing a critical role to the company's success and leading Petoskey Plastics to where it is today.
When I started, the company was doing maybe a few $100,000 in sales a year, and to see it go almost to $150 million, to see it go from a small little bag plant in a little pole barn building to 3 world-class facilities, it's mind-boggling.
I see that beautiful lake out there, people that I work with. It's absolutely incredible to actually think that we got through. How far we've come, and the people that we work with, it's exciting, and it's here in Petoskey.
As we celebrate the 50th year of Petoskey Plastics, we recognize the many people and organizations who contributed to this once small startup dream that has become an accomplished corporation.